Coming to you from Michigan, USA, and listened to by people all over the planet. Get ready to be safe and sound with Sean Sparkman.
Never take your eyes off your opponent, even when you bow.
Welcome to the Safe and Sound podcast. I'm your host, Sean Sparkman. This is really cool today. We are in absolutely beautiful Northville, Michigan. We got a beautiful river in the background here. If you're not from Michigan, I mean, sometimes you hear some bad things about Detroit, but this is the Metro Detroit area right around the city, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I got sitting next to me here a good friend of mine. His name is Taqqee Khabir, and Taqqee has been a martial artist for a very long time, but more than being a martial artist, what is it you call yourself?
Movement specialist.
Movement specialist. And I think this is really interesting because he's got a very unique perspective that can apply to everybody that's out there, not just somebody who wants to do martial arts or someone who's young. It doesn't matter what age you are, the principles that we're going to talk about today apply to everybody. So Taqqee, can you just tell people a little bit about yourself and your personal story?
So I'm 38 now. I'll be 39 this October, so Scorpio, right? I come from a big family. I have one brother and 7 sisters, so there's 9 of us total. I have triplet older sisters, and then there's me, and everybody else is younger than me. I've been into martial arts since I can remember. I think one of the earliest memories I had was watching kung fu movies with my dad. We had a big family, so we didn't have the funds to do a lot of different things, but martial arts was something that I could do by myself to express, and it was, free access. So it was easy for me to pick up.
A little bit of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris in your life?
A little bit. Jackie Chan and a couple other people, Sammo Hung and things like that. If you're not into, kung fu action movies, you might not know who those people are, but they were really influential to me when I was younger, and especially Bruce Lee in particular. The philosophy around it and the way he would speak, I always liked that. One of the things that always stuck with me, one of the things he said is, it's about expression, right? And I always liked that.
Now, one of the things Bruce Lee said that I've always loved is that you want to take the things that work, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you take the things in your life that work, and this applies to everything. You take those, and then you discard all the things that don't work. So it's a philosophy and a way of living life.
Distilling things.
Yeah, distilling it down to their purest form, and it applies to every single aspect of your life, which is one of the things I've always loved about being a martial artist myself.
Yeah.
So I know that you've had some issues and some difficulties in the past which have led you to becoming, a quote-unquote, a movement specialist.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about the story of when you got injured and how that affected your life?
Sure. So I have been doing a lot of more traditional martial arts like Taekwondo, Hapkido, Judo, and I was really enjoying that. And then I got hurt. I had injured my back, and I thought it was just a sprain. And it turns out it was a herniation. I had herniated my L3 and my L4. And when I, finally got that diagnosis, the doctor said, you need to stop doing any martial arts because you'll be paralyzed from the waist down. You're lucky you're even standing now.
So are you paralyzed today?
No, I'm not.
Obviously, you can see he's not, but this is the most interesting part of the story to me, is what happened next. So you're living with back pain, and if you've never experienced back pain, which I haven't, but I know from talking with you and other people who have, it affects every single thing that you do. So
yeah,
what was that like?
The day that I realized I was severely injured, I got up like every other day. I got out of the bed, and as soon as I stood up and the weight hit my feet, it was like an instant searing pain that paralyzed everything. And I hit the floor immediately. I couldn't get up. I stayed there all day, couldn't go to the bathroom, couldn't call for help because I couldn't move.
Wow.
And at the time I was living with a girlfriend, and when she came home, she had to pick me up and get me to sit down, and then I, scheduled a doctor's appointment and everything to come in, and it just went from there. But it was for the next year and a half, constant pain,
Wow. So what did you do to be able to move like you're moving today? Because you don't have any pain now, right?
No, I don't have any pain now. When I went to the doctor and they had told me that, I should stop moving and doing martial arts, I kind of rejected that. And I said, there's got to be a different way. What else can you do besides surgery? They wanted to fuse my spinal column and put rods in, And everybody I knew who had went through that had some kind of issues, and they weren't the same, you know. And I didn't want to stop doing what I love to do. And I was very thankful that I had the parents that I had. My mom was really into natural healing and yoga and stuff like that before it was popular. And she had took me to some classes to kind of get me exposed to it. And I knew about the healing, you know, benefits of yoga. And so I thought maybe I could find some kind of way to use that to heal my back. And just because my mom was always challenging me to think about different ways about my health, that was what kind of spurred me into looking, right? If I didn't have that, I may not have looked at all, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that they don't necessarily look right away, because if a doctor says, hey, this is what you need to do, I mean, it's easy enough to say, oh yeah, he's the expert, I might as well do what he's telling me to do. So the fact that you were looking and you essentially said, you know what, I'm not going to listen to the doctor.
Yeah.
What led to being able to move forward from there? Because, I mean, they said you could have been paralyzed, right?
Yeah,
if you ignored them.
Yeah, it was definitely something that I had to really think about. And between my mom having this strong affinity for natural healing and my dad being very spiritual, you know, I looked to that next. It's like, all right, what can I do? Can I pray about this? Can I look for something to, you know, give me a sign? And when I was going through looking, I was, you know, looking through articles online, trying to read any book I could get about stretching and anything else. And I came across a video online. I don't remember who it was, but it was a guy who was a paratrooper at one point in time, got injured, and then he couldn't do anything. He gained a lot of weight. And eventually the doctor said he was going to, you know, have a heart attack if he didn't do something. And so he was looking for something to heal himself as well. And he had different issues than I did. It was with his legs and knees. But he found somebody who was a coach that did yoga that helped him rehabilitate himself. And at the end of that video, he was able to run. I was like, well, if this guy can do it, maybe I can do the same. So I started looking for something, but I was younger, not as smart as I am now, so I didn't want to do girly yoga. And
I know what you're talking about, because I had the same thing when I was first asked to go do yoga. Like, my wife wanted me to go with her, and I'm like, I mean, I don't see any guys in the room.
Right. And so I think my Google search was like martial arts yoga or yoga for martial artists or something, and I came across this video of the art that I do now, and it's called Satriya, and it has a subsystem of yoga in it. It's a very ancient martial art from Indonesia in the family of martial arts called Pencak Silat, and this particular style of Pencak Silat really focuses on movement. And I liked what they were doing, so I got one of their DVDs and I started doing that, and I could notice that I was getting my range of motion back. I'd had more time that I wasn't in pain. And there was a couple of postures that, like, I would just sit in for like an hour or two. It was the only thing I could do that wasn't painful. And so I would sit there, and over time my body began to become more supple. It had gotten so bad at one point that, like, all my muscles were locking up so bad that they would just tear themselves.
Wow.
And I, you know, was going through everything I could to get help. I had went to a chiropractor's office to maybe looking to getting some chiropractic care, which I eventually did do. But I was sitting in this orientation class, not doing anything, and my muscles spasmed. I turned the wrong way, or something happened, and my muscles spasmed, and I tore my groin muscle. While I was sitting
so
there.
just sitting around.
Yeah, basically like
your
this.
Your muscles just tore themselves apart.
Yeah. You know, I was in the
Oh,
chair.
I can't even imagine how painful that was.
It was intensely painful, and I'm sitting in the class, and like I felt it. Nobody else knows what's going on, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to yell out, and like at this point, I've been living with this for some months now, and so I'm thankful that I was a martial artist at the time, because like breathing techniques that we learned for being able to focus and deal with pain and being uncomfortable like really helped then.
No, I bet.
Because like that was the only thing that could keep me to be able to be focused, to be able to do things. Because I still had to go to work, and at the time I worked as a quality control analyst for a manufacturing company, and so I would have to move around and do things. I was in the lab, you know, doing tests and stuff like that, and everything hurt. Like standing pretty much all day while I have a herniated disc with all my weight just pushing down on those discs.
So from being in pain for such a long period of time and learning how to deal with it and cope with it and then eventually heal yourself, what from that experience did you gain, and how has that impacted your life moving forward?
So that's a good question. One of the things that I realized was that being pain-free and being healed are not the same thing, right? Pain is a messenger, right? And a lot of times we are quick to get rid of the pain without understanding why we have it, right? And if we take away the pain, but we don't heal that underlying cause, we just grind our body down more and more, and we don't hear those alarms. It's like if you hit snooze on your alarm over and over again, it turns off, right? And eventually you wake up late for whatever you had to do. That's the same thing, except for that with our bodies, once we start to go down that road, it becomes cumulative. So let's say that we have knee pain at first. We don't figure out why we had the knee pain. We just start taking painkillers. We keep deteriorating the joints and the muscles and tissue around it, and then eventually now we have arthritis. It flares up. Now we have to take more medications which have side effects that cause problems. Or maybe we stop moving as much because it is. Now we're gaining weight. We're sitting more because our knees hurt. Now we have...
And that makes it more difficult to get started, right?
Right. And so it becomes this thing where each, kind of increment pushes you further along this hole into where now you're deteriorating to a point where you have an uphill battle.
That's interesting, because I was taught this when I first started martial arts. It's called the 1% rule, where when you're trying to make a change to your life or just trying to make things better in what you do on a daily basis, instead of trying to make wholesale changes, it's the same thing that you're describing, but in reverse.
Yeah.
It's like building a house. You take one brick at a time, and then all those bricks eventually add up to a house. That's the 1% rule. You get 1% better every day. But this is the opposite, because generally rules in life work both directions, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, it's going 1% the opposite way, right?
Yeah, definitely. And, it's surreptitious because you don't consciously make that decision, right?
Right.
You're responding to being uncomfortable, right? And so much in our society today, we're taught to seek comfort, right? Immediate gratification. We want to be comfortable. Everybody's selling you on luxury and excess, right?
Or the next big fix, lose 30 pounds in 30 days.
Right. And so nobody wakes up and says, you know what, I'm going to decide to get, sicker today. It's I'm stressed. I don't want to deal with this. This is uncomfortable. It's painful. I just want to live my life.
But the interesting flip side of the coin is that in order to make the changes, you have to make the decision.
Right.
It's so weird.
Yeah, it is. And it's like I said, it's surreptitious because you're just living your life, but each day you decide not to make a change in the opposite direction, you're sliding further down that hole. And so like you said, if you do decide to make this decision, you don't have to start all at once. It's that 1%. And the first part of it is education. Let's go back to that knee thing. If you had knee pain, you don't know why, figuring out why you have knee pain.
Right, just because the pain's in the knee doesn't mean that the problem's in the knee.
No, a lot of times it's somewhere else. You could have an underactive glutes, right? So now your leg is not in alignment. And this affects women more than it does men. Women's hips girdles are wider, and so their femur comes at a deeper angle.
Okay.
Like, so professional soccer players, they have a higher occurrence of knee injuries in the female leagues than they do the men leagues for that exact same reason.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so just simple things with your anatomy, understanding things like that can make a huge difference. Paying attention to your alignment and seeking somebody out who can explain those things to you, because unfortunately a lot of times, like your primary care physician may not even know, right? There's so much to learn about the human body.
That's why they mainly do referrals, right?
Yes.
They do the primary, the general stuff. They're like the gatekeeper that says, okay, here's what's going on. We don't know exactly why. Let's send you to the specialist.
Right. And a lot of times, if you don't have any, understanding of what's going on with your body, I don't know what's going on. Can you make it stop? Their first role is to alleviate symptoms, right? To take away your problems. And so painkillers would be the easy way. Now we can refer you to specialists or physical therapy to figure out what's going on But then usually once the pain subsides, people are like, okay, great, I'm healed, back to my life is normal, right? They don't follow through. So if you don't advocate for yourself, a lot of times you're left out there just searching around for something to make you feel better, not necessarily heal you. And the doctor wants to help you.
Right.
So
my next question is, today in your practice, you call yourself a movement specialist. So what are you doing with the experience that you've had to impact the lives of others?
Okay, so my business really is kind of two kind of different genres. One is self-defense and martial arts specifically, and the other one is physical training, right? And people come for me for different angles and different reasons for both of those, but either way, I want people to leave with a greater understanding of their body and movement that they can express. I always tell people, if you were working out, we're trying to become fit. Fit for what, right?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that means you have some kind of goal.
Right.
And I think most people, I even run into this with myself. It's like, what am I training for? Whether it's martial arts or lifting weights, like, why am I doing it? And that's sometimes the hardest reason to come up with, because it's easy to say, oh, well, I just want to be better. But what are you going to do with it?
I like that you do with it, and then that also shapes what kind of training you are looking to do. You know, if you're training to be the fastest speed skater, that's going to be completely different than if you're training to be, let's say, the best swimmer, right?
Or the number one stay-at-home mom.
Right, or whatever. But your training should reflect what your goal is and what you do in your life, right? So for me, even though I do work out at the gym and lift weights, my primary workout doesn't require me to do a lot of lifting because it'll make me bulk up a little bit, and I want to be more supple, right? Not saying that you can't work out and like that, you know, but I use a different method, right? I want my muscles to be more elastic and everything else. We were talking about this the other day, and your leg fell asleep. I was giving you kind of razzing you a little bit about you're so tight that your muscles are falling asleep, right?
Yeah, you were doing that. He says I lift too many weights.
And we go back and forth. Like, weights are great, but the mobility aspect of it is where you really, like, I find the most benefit, right? And so building strength for mobility, right?
Right.
Not just
which is why I lift weights in the first place. He just loves to razz me on anything because we've been good friends for a long time.
So yeah, anytime I can get a chance to mess with Sean, I do. It can be the simplest thing, right? He doesn't like his coffee with cream in it, and I'm going to find a reason to make fun of him about it.
This is 100% true.
Yes.
So back to what we're talking about. In your day-to-day, just do you have a specific story of somebody that you can give as an example of they came to you with some type of issue and you've helped them to become better?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you a couple different short ones, and I'll give you kind of a long one. So people a lot of times, you know, whether they're training with me with the physical training or martial arts, I don't hear stories about people be like, yeah, I got jumped by like 20 people and I beat them up, and I don't hear people say, you know, I trained with you and now I'm the top athlete in whatever, right? What I hear a lot of times is, you know, I don't have pain anymore. I had the courage to finally step up to my overbearing boss, or apply for medical school, or, you know, I can walk down the street, I'm not afraid anymore. Those things are what I get the most of. As far as a specific story, to keep everybody's privacy, we're not going to say people's names, but I had a young woman come to me, and she really didn't have any athletic, you know, kind of background, and she was just suffering from some emotional stuff, and she started training with me, and she was kind of timid at first, and she got into the training. She was doing more martial arts, and she said to me, you know, I want to feel like I'm good at this. I want to be good at it. And I said, well, how good do you want to be? She's like, the best I can be. I said, okay, well then we're going to split your training up. I know you came to me for martial arts per se, but I'm seeing the way you're moving, you have some deficiencies in strength. In order to be really good, we have to build those up, right? So I put her on a strength training program. And to her credit, she was very dedicated with everything. That's the hardest part.
Yes, it is.
Like, you can want to do something, but you got to actually do the work. And she did, right? But we would meet once a week for like an hour in the beginning, and I would give her a program, and I would give her homework to do. Strength training, do this, do this, do this. And then we would do martial arts and training and things like this. And it took about 6 months or so for me to notice the outward change, right? She said she started knowing it's going to change inside almost immediately.
That's cool.
And now she's one of my, I won't say like a star student, because all students are different.
Sure.
But she's very dedicated, and she's moving to the next stage where she's saying, maybe I want to be an instructor someday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I said, all right, well, that's the next goal. We'll work toward that. So next thing is to teach you to be able to apply this stuff. So she's looking at competition now. She went from, suffering from emotional issues and things like that, and, not being really physical. And now she's saying, I'm more confident than I've ever been. I am stronger than I've ever been. And I have a better outlook on life than I did before I met you.
That's cool.
That's cool.
So what does that feel like for you? To have a student and just a personal story, to see somebody go from here to here. How does that impact you?
It drives me. It makes me passionate. It makes me get up. For a long time, I had a 9-to-5, and I did martial arts for myself privately.
Right.
I didn't start teaching publicly until some close friends around me had some bad things happen to them, and we were talking, and they asked me some things they could do, and they came back to me later on and said, this really helped me. Maybe you should think about doing this publicly. And I was at a place where I was looking at a transition in my life. I was getting divorced, and I was like, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? I was like, this is something that I've always been passionate about. Maybe this might be a good fit for me. And since then, I've had so many opportunities because of that. It really helps me to see this is what I was meant to do. Like the passion that I have for movement and understanding how to teach people to not only just do martial arts, but move their body, right? And to understand the connection between their bodies and the things that we overlook. A lot of times we work out the vanity muscles, right?
Well, we all want to look good, don't we?
Right, we do. But sometimes it's simple things like strengthening your ankle stability so your foot isn't caving in, which will then give your knee more stability and take that pain away. Working on your ankles is not something you see people doing at the gym necessarily, right?
Not very often.
But it's important for the stability and structure of the entire human body, just like a foundation of the house. Right. And so helping people to understand the connection between those things and what they are seeing, their movement patterns, how they're feeling. And then I was saying, now that my ankle is stronger, my foot's more solid, I'm not as tired at the end of my work day. Now I can go home and have the energy to be engaged with my family, my kids, right?
Or maybe if you're, say, retired or in your later years, what would that look like for somebody like that?
Something like that. Things like as we get older, a lot of times people who are older have issues with their knees, their hips. Foot drop is a huge issue. People falling, right? Or getting up and down the stairs.
So what's something they could do to help work on that?
A simple thing you can do just like to help with ankle strength and mobility is to actually practice flexing your feet. So if you're sitting down just like we are here, flexing your toes. I don't know if you can see in the camera, but flexing the toes up toward the shin.
Okay.
Holding that.
And you don't even need a gym to do that,
No,
right?
you don't. And then once you can get to that, you can always add a little bit of resistance. You could use a towel at first. Or a resistance band. Step on one side and flex your toes.
Oh, like those rubber bands that you can get on Amazon, like the exercise
Yeah,
ones?
like little circular ones or whatever. You can use that. And that can help strengthen. It will also stabilize your foot, right? It keeps your bones stacked where they should be instead of being off to the side. So if you think about your foot as a platform, if it's flat, you can stack things on it. But if it's tilted, now you have something that's got to compensate.
Well, that makes sense. And then if you're tilted, like you are here, and let's say you've got your shin bone going up, then that of course would place your knee out of line, right?
Yes.
Which then would place your hip out of line and your shoulders. So just by fixing and working on the feet and ankles, I'm assuming that that can affect the whole chain.
Everything's connected.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so our bones aren't actually like together as a structure. They're like sticks held together by rubber bands. And if the tension on any one band is out of place or it's shifted, it affects the entire system.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So if people want to learn more about you, where's the best place for them to go?
You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. I have a website. My Facebook and my Instagram are Close Quarters Combat Academy. And you can find me online, Google. You can type it in, Close Quarters Combat Academy. Or you can go to my website directly, which is cqcacademy.com.
And we'll include links in the show notes below, so if you want to check that out and just click on them, it'll take you right to Taqqee's social media. And his Instagram, he's got a lot of cool videos. He does a lot of cool outdoors things, and just you can see like the difference in the movement. Like if you ever watch MMA or boxing or any of that stuff, the way he moves is going to be quite a bit different because it's that ancient Indonesian style martial art, and they do things a little different. It's cool.
Yeah, it's really about expressing. When I was first getting into it, when I first met my instructor, he gave me this analogy about fighting a shark.
Okay.
Right? And I was like, all right.
That's funny because I'm wearing a shark shirt.
Right. And but he was like, we move in one plane at a time, usually as humans, right? We go forward, backwards, maybe we go up or down, right? But in the water, a shark can go 360 degrees, right? Up, down, around, all over, right?
Sure.
And if you can't follow them the same way, you're outmatched. And so he says, if you are talking about self-defense or martial arts, if you can move in more planes of motion than your opponent can, you can dictate how the engagement goes.
Interesting. Or just move better in life, right?
Yeah, or move better in life. Jiu-jitsu kind of does the same way, where they want to take people to the ground. They're not used to be on the ground. You do jiu-jitsu, so the idea is that bring them down where they're uncomfortable, and then when they're uncomfortable, they don't know what to do. You have an advantage.
Yeah, we call ourselves the sharks on the ground.
Of course you do.
That's an old school Brazilian term.
So
I think that's the scientific term for Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Okay. So, but that idea of being free to move in life or in martial arts is really like a metaphor for everything around, being able to connect to the ground like we did when we were kids, right? In the system that I was training, when you first start, you learn basic self-defense, and then the next thing you learn is the ground motion. And so it's like, my instructor says, just like nature, we try to imitate that in the art. And
yeah, I like to razz him because their martial art's very kung fu-y, where they have
animal systems.
Yeah, they have the animal systems. Like they got an alligator movement. And,
right.
What else? You got a tiger movement.
Tiger
right?
movement.
Yeah, you got to have a tiger movement if you're a martial artist.
Right.
You're not a real martial artist without some kind of tiger claw.
Right. And so he says you learn this self-defense, basic stuff, and you go to the ground. Just like when you were born, your mother picks you up and says, "Oh, baby," and then you start to learn to crawl. Right. And that's the same thing. When we're kids, we play. We're intimate with the ground. We're in the dirt and everything else, looking at bugs. And then somewhere along the line, we grow up, and we're told the ground is a foreign place that you should not be as an adult. It's below you, right? And so most adults have this fear of the ground and falling, right? Anything like,
sure.
And
that's why one of the first things we do in a self-defense class and in my style of martial arts is teach people how to fall.
Yeah, same here. And it's huge. Just to have that, and that's a skill that can go like all over your life.
Sure.
It sounds silly, but a couple years back, I was at a graduation party at Grand Rapids in the wintertime. It's Healy, and I had to go out and get something in dress shoes. Slipped on that pavement, came down, and I mean,
Wish I could have been there for that.
it was feet up in the air, right? And then my training kicked in. And I rolled to the side, landed, spread it out, didn't get hurt. And
That's
I was
awesome.
sitting here laughing about it, right? But I didn't get up right away. A guy saw me across the street, saw this happen, and I didn't get up. And this guy freaked out.
Yeah, he thought you died.
Oh, he did. He yelled. He was running across the street. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm getting up laughing, right? But if I didn't have that training, man, my head just boom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so things like that, just being able to come to the ground and move, it challenges your body in a different way. We don't typically move that way, so it engages the entire possibility of human movement, right?
That's cool.
And
so I have a question for you
Okay.
as we wrap up here. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't think to ask?
So if you guys don't know, this is our second time trying to do this. We had an issue with the camera the first time.
And we're hoping that the issue's not happening again right now.
Right. And you asked me the same question. I had a really good answer, and it was on the spot that day. And I don't really remember. I think, actually I remember now. It was to play.
That is what you said.
It was to play. And so a lot of times we, as adults, we want to get things right. We want to learn things the right way and, be approved, whatever, get our certificates, whatever we're doing. Sometimes make room for yourself in your life to play. Remember what it's like to explore, not only different situations in your life, but your body in itself, right? What it's like to move differently, to be on the ground, to stand up. How can I get out of this situation in a different way? When I open the door, instead of just opening the door, can I use a different part of my body to open the door, right? Find ways to play and experiment with your movement. There's a theory out there that talks about why humans have evolved the way we have. And they were saying that because we can move in so many different ways, it allowed our brain to grow to where it is now, because movement creates more neural pathways than anything else that we do.
Yeah.
Right.
I was reading something the other day that was talking about in relation to Alzheimer's and people that are having issues with memory or just brain function, that we're just trying to prevent it, that movement is one of the keys to being able to do that. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that was why, but
Yeah.
that's cool.
So the thing out there is neuroplasticity. The brain, even when you get older, can still regrow neural pathways and basically regenerate itself. But it needs stimulus.
Right.
If you don't have stimulus, it kind of like shrivels away. Right?
That makes sense.
And so movement, learning something new, even something, I read an article a while back, it was like attempting to learn to juggle. Even if you never become good at it,
Yeah.
has so many benefits neurologically. It like resets your brain so many years.
So it goes back to the old saying of, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah. Use it or lose it,
Interesting.
And so, yeah, just experimenting with new things, new movements, new things, learning a new skill. Anything like that will help you with not only preserving your brain function and everything else, but then just give you a new perspective on life, a new experience,
Cool. Taqqee, I really appreciate you coming out today. This was a lot of fun. I always enjoy our conversations. Like I said, we've been good friends a long time, so we talk almost every day, but being able to do this and let you share your experiences has been a privilege for me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So listen to the Safe and Sound podcast. If you're watching on video, either way, we're going to have new people on going forward with different experiences, because what I find for my personal growth is that listening to other people's experiences allows me to draw things from that helps me to be a better person.
Yeah.
So
I'm
part of doing
learning
the
a lot from
podcast, thank you. And part of doing the podcast is a little selfish, because I get to learn, and even though I talk to him all the time, I learned something new today. So I hope you did too. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Safe and Sound Radio with Sean Sparkman. Sean Sparkman. If you have questions or would like to suggest a topic for future shows, contact Sean at 313-246-9278 or visit the website at www.safeandsoundretirement.net. That's www.safeandsoundretirement.net.
I must leave.